Welcome back to the BookEnds YouTube channel. I'm James McGowan.
I'm Jessica Faust.
If this is your first time here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single video from us. But today we are talking about the 10 things that literary agents look for in an illustrator.
Which is mostly on you.
Yeah, pretty
I'm
much.
just going to sit back with our viewers and watch and learn.
Yeah, we have not done much about illustrators on the channel, so it's fun to do sort of how agents tackle that part of the business.
Yeah, and for people who are new, or maybe people who are not involved in the picture book industry, in addition to representing authors, literary agents also represent illustrators. Typically, illustrators do the art for picture books, graphic novels, and even cover art. But I think what people outside the picture book world don't always realize is that the author is not responsible for bringing the illustrator. The publisher, when they find a book they love, will then also reach out to literary agents and illustrators to do the art to match the book that the author has written.
Right. I would say in most cases, it's done that way. The
Yeah.
publisher usually does that. There are, of course, anomalies where there's the author illustrator or a team or something like that, but that's how it works in most cases. And most writers don't realize that they don't have to go through the process of finding one and paying for one and getting all that done before they even submit to an agent.
Yeah, so a whole other side to literary agents is in addition to representing words, we represent art.
Yeah. So if you have visited the channel before, you know the whole querying process, I'm sure, of how to query text. But how do you do that in art? There are 10 things that we think literary agents look for when we're trying to find a great new artist to work with.
Yeah.
So the first of which, and I think this is probably the broadest and most subjective, is the style. The style of art, meaning there's so much that goes into that, right? Like the medium, the way that you draw faces and characters and hands, and is it more cartoony? Is it more graphic novel and comic-y? Is it more realistic? There's so much that goes into that.
Yeah, I mean, most agents will try to have a diverse portfolio of different styles. They will take on illustrators who have different styles, just like literary agents will often take on authors who represent or who write in different genres,
Right.
and also have different styles of writing from one to the next. But yes, like you said, some might be whimsical, some might be stronger and darker. I mean, there's so many different ways that art is done. I mean, if you just go to any picture book section of the store, you can see different styles.
Yeah, and even what you use to create that art lends itself to your style. So are you doing watercolor? Do you tend to do pen and ink? Do you do digital art? There's so many different ways that you can do this.
Yeah.
I mean, you can even paint on a canvas. Yvonne Ivanson, a BookEnds client, paints her whole book on a canvas, and that's
amazing.
how it's beautiful. But and that lends to her style. It really, you can see the lines of the canvas in her art, and that sets her apart from other artists.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So that's the number one thing. And like we said, perhaps the most subjective. So every person is going to respond to a different art style in a different way. And what sort of grabs my eye might not grab Jessica's eye, and vice versa. So that's the number one thing that we are sort of quick scanning for. Do we like this?
And I would say if you're an illustrator looking for a literary agent, don't try to predict or submit based on agents who you think will like your style.
Right.
Because they may represent, 10 illustrators, and none of them look like your style, but that might mean that they're perfect because they're looking exactly for your style versus somebody who represents a lot of illustrators who already have a style similar to yours. So at the end of the day, that's one of those, you can't control that, so don't try to, but it is probably at first glance what an agent looks at.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too that like we know when we see it, right? Like it's sort of like an emotional reaction. And once I see that art, I'm like, ooh, what's that? Or I want to see more, or something like that. That's the first initial step any agent will take when looking at art. So the second thing kind of expands on that a bit, and it's range. So agents want to see the range of your art. They want to see that you are doing more than just one thing. So are you doing more than just drawing cats? Are you doing more than just painting landscapes? Are you making sure that you have different color palettes and things like that influenced in your art?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you can't be hired only for cat books.
Right.
You know,
That'd be pretty cool. I'm sure there are a lot of illustrators that would love that.
you're going to be limited though if you're only doing books with cats.
Right.
At some point there might be a dog or a person in a cat book, and the art director and the agent need to see that you can also draw those things.
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of mixed together our second and third point here, because our third point was about subjects. But this can also mean, like, are you only drawing images where people are sitting and reading and there's not much movement? Are you drawing very, very happy images and not sad or excited or scared or anything like that? Like, are you showing a range in emotion and what's actually happening in the image? So all of that really contributes to the same point, but we broke them down to two. So we want to see that you can do animals and people and buildings and environments, but that you can also do happy and sad and movement and stationary posts and all of that. Right. So the next thing that most agents will look for, because this is a tough one, and I'm sure every illustrator will agree, is hands. We want to make sure that you can draw hands. We are drawing, in many cases, children. The hands can't kind of be, that's what art directors are looking for. They've got to be good, solid hands.
I learned this early on in BookEnds Junior's beginning, was that it is one of the first things that everybody looks at. I mean, it should probably be number 2. You look at the style, you like the style, and you're going to look at the hands first, because that hands, I am not an artist, but I know I can't draw hands, but hands are really sort of, I guess, one of the tougher things to draw. And if you can't draw hands, then it shows that maybe you're struggling in other ways.
Yeah. That's a good point. And also, we are always using our hands, especially in illustration. So it's really important they're either, used to show emotion, like shock or something like that, or movement or activity. So
yeah, if you're going to have people in your book, you at some point or another going to have hands.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because we'll see a lot of artists might put a character's hands behind their back. So when I see that, I notice it's like, now I need to look for the hands, because is that a natural reaction or position for the character to be in, or is it because you're hiding the hands? So it's something that we all look for.
Interesting.
Yeah. Number 5 is, I like to see this. We did poll the BookEnds agents on what they like to see in illustrators as well. We like to see black and white photos, and just to see that you can do black and white illustration. I'm not sure that this is a make or break, but it is something that we look for. So a lot of times chapter books, maybe even middle grade illustrations, will have black and white only. And it's just nice to see that you can do those and sort of have that same ability to tell a story in an image in black and white.
Yeah.
But that brings us back to the color, because we're always looking at color palette. Particularly that you have a wide range of a color palette, and that it's not too monotone, that every image is not done in the same color palette, that there is life to the images, and that they feel like they are different images and not all part of the same book. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that, and that's a pretty easy one for us to see too. Like, just look at your profile page, and if it all looks like it's one big giant image because it's all the same color palette, I might wonder, well, what other colors can you use in your art, and how can we make things stand out and contrast and things like that? So number 7, and this is getting more into the businessy side of things, but number 7 is that you are regularly posting and you are up to date. So if I go to your Instagram and I find that you have all of these images on your Instagram, but I'm on your website and I'm not seeing those, I wonder why. Is your portfolio up to date with the newest art? Is it, are you constantly working on new stuff, or are you just reposting the same images over and over? That might make an agent wonder about your ability to produce new work.
Yeah, that makes sense, because, and you need to be showing, I mean, would you say like weekly? I mean, is there a time, or just sort of some consistent new work showing up across the board?
Some consistent movement. And I think we talked about this with the authors too, in terms of, or any creator really, in terms of creating a social media platform. Whatever you commit to, whether it's once a week, once a day, you just want to commit to that and make sure that you're consistently doing it. Like,
do you need to be on Instagram? Now, I know a lot of you will look for illustrators on Instagram, so I know for that reason it's a good way to get your material in front of an agent. But I mean, are you saying that illustrators need to be on Instagram, or if they only have a website and updating that regularly while querying agents, would that be enough?
If you were querying agents and you didn't have an Instagram, I think that's fine, but I think Instagram is the best way to build a platform. I think that's where most of the artists regularly post. There's a huge kidlit art, children's illustration community there. And I mean, you can see a children's illustration on Instagram, illustrator on Instagram with 50, 60, 100,000 followers. It builds a great platform. And you sort of get to test your art out there, right? Like, what do people respond to? Do they like this style? Do they like these colors? Did this image work? Could this character potentially be its own book? I would recommend being on Instagram. I think because it is a visual app that it lends itself better to illustrators, but a lot of illustrators use Twitter and they use it regularly. But Twitter can get noisy. There's a ton of news that is always hitting the feeds. So I feel like your art is quicker to get lost in Twitter than it is on Instagram, where everything is visual and it can pop and really grab viewers and followers.
And it's not just agents, it's art directors and,
Right.
and people, other people in the industry who will follow these key hashtags on Instagram and look for artists, you know, especially if an art director maybe has a book that they're looking for an artist for, but they haven't quite seen the right thing yet. They may search Instagram. They may end up finding an agented illustrator that, you know, got buried on their desk somewhere. But
yeah, I think personally it's probably the easiest to work, Instagram, in my opinion.
I love Instagram. So
yeah, I just think it's a lot more fun, and you can test so much out with the stories and the posts. So I would recommend being on Instagram.
A lot less drama on Instagram.
Huh?
A lot less drama on Instagram too.
That is true. So number 9 is your website. I highly recommend that all illustrators have a website. It's a great place to have your best art, have that wide range of art that we were talking about earlier in the video, have your contact information, a bio, even the sorts of projects that you're interested in. And when you do start illustrating books, then you have a landing page for all of your books and buy links and all of that.
Yeah, and I would go back to something I've said before, but social media is fantastic, but you have no control of social media.
Right.
And, you know, it could disappear one day. They can change the algorithms so nobody sees your stuff. It's impossible to find. So creating a website gives you the control. You can have a newsletter if you want.
Yeah.
You can have a mailing list, but more importantly, you know, you can guarantee on your website that people can find your work and see a full portfolio on there, which might not be as easy on Instagram. And you can control the portfolio. Yes. You know, if you want to put your portfolio on Instagram and there are some older images that maybe aren't your strength, now you've got to go in and delete them and, you know, refinagle your Instagram, where on your website, you can fully recreate different portfolios depending on what you're looking for too. So it's the one thing that's in your control.
Yeah, and it's also the best way to control what your viewer sees too. So if you really want them to focus on something, that's your page to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we sort of talked about this one already, which was social media, so I will skip that one. But the last one, I think, is the best way to put it, is that gut feeling, the wow factor that just grabs an agent and says, I want to work with this artist. I think their work is incredible. It's expressive, it's fun, it's bright. That's what I want to work on. And having that sort of vision, can I see this person doing this kind of book? Could they illustrate something really funny? Could they do something historical? Just having that sort of vision, the same way that an agent might for a writer.
I always want to hang their work on my wall.
Yeah, that's a great, and I think when we were back in the office, you used to say that all the time. Like, do you want to hang that person's work on your wall?
Yeah.
And that's the question I ask myself with all the illustrators I work with. Like, do I want them framed on the wall behind me in my videos? Of course, I don't have them here today, and I should, now that I think about that. But is it something that I want to display that every time I look at, I feel good about? And that's just sort of what an agent will respond to right away.
Yeah. Yep. Just like, you know, we all respond, you know, I mean, think about if you're buying picture books for somebody, the first thing that you gravitate towards is the art.
Yeah.
Always.
We used to have all of our clients' postcards hung up on the BookEnds Junior shelf in there. I don't know if they still are, but that's really the best way to put it into a nutshell. That's what
Yep.
we're looking for.
Absolutely.
Well,
That's exciting.
yeah, well, we hope this was helpful for all of the illustrators or author illustrators out there. The same goes for author illustrators, except you also get to query a dummy, a picture book dummy.
Yeah, and if you're interested in seeing who BookEnds represents for illustrators, they're all on their website, and you can see on the BookEnds website, and you can see their work, and it's fun to look at.
Yeah, and also because you said that, it's a great way to get inspiration. How does this person manufacture their website? How often are they on social media? What sort of things do they post? So if you need that starting point, the best thing to do is to find your favorite illustrator and look at their social media and website just to get a look.
Absolutely.
But we hope that was helpful. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we hope to see you back here next time.
Bye.